Wait, do you ever get disappointed when you're showing someone something for the first time and you really want them to get it? And
No,
they
not
don't?
at all. I think
Yes.
Oh.
Matt knew exactly where I was
Absolutely.
going with that question.
I'm clearly an Eeyore.
I'm probably Rue.
I'm a Christopher Robin with a Pooh Rising.
And then I get in a canoe and I'm like, Clairs don't like canoes.
No, they don't.
I'm afraid of this lake.
That's exactly what it was.
Ow.
It was a beautiful moment in our friendship. I was
literally in the middle of getting hers up and down the
Pathetic.
stairs. Ow. I was like, I'm trying to get my hair done. I'm like, ah.
I don't think that's an accurate representation of my owl.
Well, you were in such pain you couldn't see clearly. So,
Trauma.
Thank you for listening to the Last Will podcast. I'm Matt Young. I'm a theater educator and a parent. And ever since I lost my father to cancer, I have been mildly obsessed with death. This is my last will and testament. Neil Gaiman once said, "Stories can conquer fear you know. They can make you feel like we're not alone." That's right, this week's episode is all about storytelling. We have a special guest for you, so I hope you enjoy the episode. Today's episode is brought to you by the Crystal Theater production of The Last Days of Judas Iscariot. Get ready to think and laugh. This Friday opens The Last Days of Judas Iscariot by Stephen Adly Gurgis. It's a dark comedy. What happens when Judas stands trial in purgatory? If Jesus died for all of our sins, why is Judas still in the ninth circle of hell? Expect witty dialogue, outrageous characters, and a comic twist on betrayal that will leave you in stitches. Don't miss this unique blend of comedy and philosophy that challenges everything you thought you knew about faith and forgiveness. The Last Days of Judas Iscariot opens this Friday at the Crystal Theater. Go to crystaltheater.org to get your tickets. It's a trial that's anything but ordinary.
All right, now we're rolling.
All right. Well,
What else could we do?
Not gonna talk about that again.
Well, that's why I think I hit the roll it, so we don't have to talk about it.
Okay,
that's
good.
awesome.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
How's
Hi.
everybody doing?
I'm okay.
Good.
I have
Good.
my voice back, kind of.
Yeah, we didn't meet last week. You guys won't know that because the episodes still come out every week. But we didn't meet last week because Claire's voice was non-existent. And she wouldn't even get on the phone to prove it. She would just text, "I don't have a voice," so
Yeah.
I don't know if I believe it.
People called me last weekend. Like I got a lot of phone calls last weekend, and I had told them previously I can't speak, and then they called me, and then I had to decline the calls, and I hate that, like, because it's just weirdly so handicapped to like not have a voice, but also really have to stand your ground and be like, I literally can't. I just can't.
Also, it probably felt like, hey, people aren't listening to me.
Yeah.
I'm talking, and they're not listening, and this is rude.
Well,
and it touched
yeah.
something.
There was also a moment where my parents I was at home and they were out and something happened and they needed me. Like they needed me to go pick one of them up somewhere. And I had gotten the phone calls from them and my mom's like, "What are you okay?" I'm like, I literally can't talk, but you know that. And then I'm in the car, wherever I'm going, and they just keep calling me to ask me where I am, or don't go this way because this road's closed, or where are you? And I just hung up.
Doesn't it encourage you text?
I don't do
Oh,
that.
I guess you can't text. It's text to speech.
Oh,
anyways.
yeah. I would have to talk
Right.
into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Claire,
But, yeah.
we buried the lead.
What?
We buried the lead.
What does that mean?
That means the headline is now in the back of the paper.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you want the headlines to be at the front of the paper, don't you?
Right.
What's the headline?
Unless it's Take Out the Trash
Did
Friday.
I fuck this up?
No.
What happened?
We have a guest.
Oh, my God. Yeah, we do.
We have a guest here.
Matt, take it away.
No, you take it away.
Oh, okay. So today we have Nick. I'm such a jerk. I'm so bad at introducing people in real life, too.
You want to do take two?
No.
Well, you could learn from your mistakes, and then you
Okay,
could try
so
again.
Everybody, this is Nick. Nick's a good friend of mine. He's an intellectual, and therefore, I thought he would be a great guest for our podcast. He's got a lot of good stuff to say. He's very
a terrific
well-read.
human being.
Yes.
And so we brought him in because Grady is not here, and Nick has been very supportive of both Claire and I. and we want to pick his brain a little bit. So we decided this would be perfect. And we were going to do it last week, and we had to cancel on poor Nick. And because Claire was faking sick, I guess.
But
According to
luckily,
her parents.
luckily Nick was available again. And Nick, do you want to introduce your topic? Sorry, we didn't vet you for this at all.
I was just saying, no, we didn't vet me at all.
We didn't even talk about our
Because
topic before
that's
we
just what we do.
got here.
I like it, actually. So I'm Nick. And
Nailed it.
Claire asked me like 2 weeks ago what I was, I guess maybe even more, what I thought about the topic. And of course, I overthought the whole thing, and finally came up with the idea, the topic of what makes a good story. And then even on the way here today, I was like, I don't like this topic.
We're gonna switch it up right now. We're gonna do pots and pans.
And I like that. That's how we should just start it. But no, I the reason I don't like it is because I guess I don't want to be the judge of what makes a good story, and so it's more so what do I like?
Right. What are the types of stories? What are the things in stories that like you're attracted to that you find exciting? I think we all understand that we have our own personal opinions on this, and we're not trying to push our opinions. But the one thing I say to my students, the one thing I say to my own kids, is that it's perfectly all right to dislike something, but I think it's important that you know why you dislike something. You know why you like something. It can't just be because when I went to college, I'm putting Roger Williams on blast, the class of '94 London theater program. I'm putting you on blast right now. We would have a topic or class called Modern Theater, and it would be on Mondays, and we would discuss the theater that we saw all week. Now, this was like the greatest program in the world, and Roger Williams, I'm so mad at you for turning your theater major into a theater minor. Boo to you.
That's
But we
so
went.
lame.
We studied in London, and every night we saw a play. They put tickets on the board, and you'd grab the tickets, and you'd find your way to the theater, and we'd have to watch a play. And so we saw like 6 or 7 plays a week. And then on Monday, we'd have a class where we would discuss it. And a lot of the times, people were just lazy in their discussion. And it was like, I liked it. It was like boring at the beginning, but then I thought it got better by the end. And so, I liked it. And I'm like, there's nothing. There's no substance in that answer whatsoever. And that kind of like switched something in my brain. And it was like, fine not to like something. Let's just know why we don't like it. It's fine to love something, but know why you love it.
Yeah.
So I think that's really what we're going to get at today is what we love about story, what we're attracted to about story. So let's like dive in. Let's go right to where we always start, which is like the definition. I'm just going to do the definition of story.
Matt has a
so we're
dictionary
clear.
now, by the way.
You want me to look in the dictionary for it?
We'll have to look up 3 words.
Only if you want to.
I don't have my readers. If I wasn't in between glasses again.
It's okay. We can do AI today.
Just for today. A story is a narrative or account of events and experiences, whether true or fictitious. It typically involves characters, a plot, setting, and a conflict or theme. A conflict or theme? Wait, what? I think all stories have theme. I mean, most
and conflict.
Probably conflict too. Not and or. Come on, AI. Stories are used to entertain, inform, or convey moral lessons and can be communicated through various mediums, including written text, oral tradition, film, and art. The structure of a story often includes a beginning, middle, and an end, guiding the audience through the unfolding events and emotional arcs.
This is such your typical, like, linear definition of story.
I mean, but that's where we should start, right?
Yeah.
With the boring version of
Yeah,
what
I mean,
story is.
if anything, we are anything but linear as this podcast.
Which is fun. I mean, I that's one of my favorite parts of the episodes that I've listened to is it jumps all over.
Yeah.
And we haven't even talked about poop yet. So look at
Matt,
that.
don't even bring it up. Oh God.
We're ahead of the game. We're ahead of the game.
God.
Okay.
Not in front of a guest.
Well, he's listened, so he knows.
Yeah. No, I'm well versed.
So anyway.
So story, right? What is the thing that gets you most excited about story? Let's book or like film or TV show. What's the thing that pops out?
Well, I can tell you that I started off my day today by watching the end of Empire Strikes Back.
You did that this morning?
I did.
Before
Like
10
I did like probably the last 45 minutes. That is a film that when I was a child, I didn't really care for, and I liked Star Wars a lot, but I really liked Return of the Jedi at the very end. You know, it's like.
Do you think not to interrupt, but I'll do that a lot. Do you think it was because it was so dark, and Jedi is more hopeful? And
I think when I was a kid, the idea of I think it was a lot of things. I liked Luke's green lightsaber more. I loved like the Jabba. I loved the palace stuff in the beginning.
Yeah.
And obviously the end is awesome, and the end is still awesome. And I think the reason I went to Empire this morning is because every time I watch this film, it just gets better for me, and it is unequivocally my favorite Star Wars film at this point, and specifically that last 45 minutes with the Luke and the escape from Bespin. I got to be careful here. I don't want to upset I don't want to get my facts wrong. You know, the Star Wars fans will come and get me.
I'll correct you.
And anyway, and I was thinking about how Star Wars in general just has shifted for me over the years. The things that I've liked about it that drew me to it as a child, the blasters and the lightsabers and the ships and all of that stuff. Really what I've later found out is like the aesthetic is the stuff that I don't. Well, I still love the aesthetic, but it's not what interests me about it today.
It's not what draws you to it.
And what draws me to it today, and probably why Empire is kind of that film for me now, is there's just so much that happens in it. And the story of Luke coming off of being the hero and then going through the trials and tribulations, ultimately finding out that this evil villain is his father.
Yeah. Spoilers.
Yeah, spoilers. Sorry, guys.
Give it away.
And watching him go from having hubris to being humbled to getting hubris again, and you know, and then ultimately being like, what the hell did I just get myself into?
Yeah.
When he eventually has to go and actually fight Vader.
I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense what you're saying. I believe Star Wars, like a few other stories, has a certain legacy that is connected to us as we grow. So there is obviously a certain appeal for a young person, but there's also an appeal for a teenager, and then there's appeal for a young adult, and appeal for an older adult. I know for myself with Star Wars. Yeah, I'm just lounging.
Sorry, I keep touching
no worries.
my feet.
We're playing footsie under there. Don't be jealous, Claire. Don't be jealous.
I picked the right crew today.
I think that it's one of those pieces of work that follow us through our lives in different ways and offers us something different in our lives at different periods. And it doesn't surprise me that aesthetically the things that were pleasing were the green laser swords and the blasters and the spaceships when you're young. I know I always loved Star Wars, but like fell in deep when I was in college. You know, I started reading the novels and things like that, and what was most appealing to me as a young adult was the philosophy, was the idea of what the Force was, diving deeper into everything is connected and everything is balanced, and what does that mean, and the light and the dark. And then as an adult, as a parent, it's an opportunity to share with my kids. Star Wars is this moment of sharing. I remember that it was Lego Star Wars was one of the first things that my kids got into, that they really kind of saw the good and the bad and were open to the aesthetics. And then it was something that was so important to me was now important to them. And, you know, leading to the idea of being in Disney World with my eldest last June and us building lightsabers together and it, you know, hitting every emotional whatever thing in me to be able to be there and build lightsabers with him. And so I think Star Wars is a special piece of storytelling that hits you in all different ways as you go through your life.
Yeah.
So that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. No, I totally relate to everything you said, and I know and I know that Claire, you have this with a different saga. In
the Paddington saga, right? You're a big Paddington Bear person.
Come on, Matt.
Oh, I'm sorry. She's more Cocaine Bear. What? No, what is it?
Oh, Cocaine Bear. Yeah.
Who's Cocaine Bear? Oh, was that a movie?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Talk about storytelling at its finest.
I never saw
the
that.
hero's journey. That bear went through a real hero's journey.
No, he did indeed.
Anybody who knows this podcast knows.
I mean,
that.
we could talk about Tolkien later.
Oh, okay.
But
I was gonna say we probably shouldn't bore everyone down with our fandom, or not bore. That's the wrong word, but
No, but like in the end, it is about our fandom. It's the things that draw us. You know, I did spend a lot of time with Star Wars novels. I went to college in Rhode Island. It was just under 3 hours away, and I used to get these audio tapes of these Star Wars books. They were cassettes. Yes, I'm that old.
Wow,
Popped a cassette in the car.
That's awesome.
And then I would get home. They were 3-hour audio tapes. I would get home and I would sit in the driveway. I think I've said this. It's in the driveway for like 15 minutes to finish the story, and then I started to buy the books and I started to read the books and spent a lot of time with the Timothy Zahn books. What is it? The Last Command and the Dark Force Rising and Heir to the Empire, which they're kind of doing with the Ahsoka series and stuff. That they brought Thrawn into it. Like these are books that to me were so essential Star Wars to my journey to going deeper into what I felt was like the Force, and understanding the philosophy of it. I loved it in all of its forms, whether it was audiobook, whether I was reading it, and then to be able to stand in line for 24 hours with my friends at the Ziegfeld Theater to go see The Phantom Menace, and then make excuses after The Phantom Menace for why, no, it's setting up all of this good stuff. I swear to God, it's setting up all of this good stuff. And it didn't. It didn't set up any of that stuff, but it did give us Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi, and that was pretty special. And now Hayden Christensen is having a renaissance as Anakin, and I'm happy for him. Like,
I would say
even
as
though at
deserved.
the time I felt like he was whiny.
Yeah. As deserved.
Yeah, I'm so happy for him, and he can wield a lightsaber like it's nobody's business.
That's
so. Is that story or is this fandom?
Well, I'm thinking too, because like when one of the things that bothers me about film adaptations is that I don't think it captures the story perfectly the way that I imagined it. But that's only, what is that, a subjective? Objective? I always get this
subjective. Yeah.
Like obviously it's just my opinion. I have such a hard time with film adaptations. The only ones that I approve of are Lord of the Rings. Probably because I watched them before and also simultaneously while I was reading the story, and as I was reading the book I understood like how you can't possibly fit that all into the film, but
and yet they tried.
They did a good job.
Yeah, that Return of the King has 7 endings.
Yeah.
They tried to get them all in there.
Like 3 maybe.
And they only really held out Bombadil and then the Shire at the end of Return of the King, right?
And a couple
Spoilers.
other things too.
Nick hit his spoilers.
Yeah,
geez.
sorry guys.
The material that's over 20 years old.
I mean, it's over 20 years old. I'm over 20 years old.
Barely though, Claire, barely.
But so when you said, and you were talking about the films that didn't quite capture or deliver the story, I believe that's kind of what you were saying, Matt. I found that too. In as far as film goes, that sometimes I don't think that film really captures the story well enough.
Yeah.
And because they're probably trying to hit certain marks and check off certain boxes and create enough of a spectacle. And plus, like, even so,
it's a different medium too. I mean,
right.
You have different things that you objectively you have to get at.
There's a book that I read last year. I'm not going to say what it is because I don't want to insult anyone.
Ooh, now I want to know.
I'll tell you after. You're probably going to know what it is. A movie. I saw a movie trailer for something, and I was like, oh, I didn't know there was a prequel, so I'm going to read the book. So I read the book, loved the book, put off seeing the movie, I guess.
Yeah.
Until my recent airplane experience where I found it on the airplane, and I was like, oh, perfect, I'm going to watch it. I watched like 15 minutes of it, and then I was like, can't do this. I loved the book so much. I thought that the way that the story was told, the way that the words are put on the page, and then how I translate that into a story that I like a whole narrative and a whole setting and environment that I created in my mind. And then what they skipped in the first 15 minutes of the movie, I was just like so turned off by it.
I understand. No, I understand. And there's probably something about your ability and your connection to visualization that connects you to a story through like book as opposed to movie.
And there's also the they have to write a screenplay. They have to write a script for the story. They have to capture what was said in the book, and then they have to translate it to visual. And also they have actors who have to understand the character and then have to impart whatever that is. And I mean, it's interpretation, and my interpretation versus their interpretation were clearly different.
Yeah.
But
for sure. And also, like, in a book, you can get in somebody's mind.
Right.
You know, and sometimes you need to get into somebody's mind. And sometimes when you do that in a movie, the narration feels like a real, like, cliche. It kind of takes you out of...
Like, I think I spent an entire year reading Gone with the Wind. And when I was really young. And it was such a beautiful story. It was probably the only book that I had really gotten into as far as historical fiction. And I was trying to watch the movie while I was reading the book so that I could kind of put some, setting to the story. But there was so much in that book that was about the inside of Scarlett. I almost said Scarlett Johansson. I
can't blame you there.
Scarlett O'Hara's mind. You know, everything she thought of about all of her marriages, her whole story, like her whole struggle, like that, the movie was great, but it doesn't quite encapsulate the entire experience in the entire story of what she went through. And it's really hard to take all of that writing and then put it behind someone's face in a movie, you know, and which is why I'm so intrigued by like acting itself, because there are some actors where you could really see what's going on.
Yeah.
And then with some other people, you just can't see what's going on in their face.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is a pretty obvious statement, but I feel like Daniel Day-Lewis is almost like the master of that. You know, I was watching Phantom Thread, what's got to be a couple months ago now. And a lot of that movie, he's not talking. And even like the beginning, for instance, of There Will Be Blood is almost a silent film. And you're just kind of watching the wheels turn in this character who's played by him. And there's really something to that. And it's something that I... Sorry, I keep coughing into the mic. There's something to that idea to me now of the stuff that's unsaid. Mm-hmm. That you, the audience member, gets to kind of impart their experience with. So just to bring it back to where I started, one of the things that I was watching when I was watching Empire Strikes Back this morning, I was a guy who's often criticized for his acting, Mark Hamill. I was actually I was really enjoying the all the stuff that he was doing in the end of Empire, because in this weird way, it's incredibly human. Like here, this guy's like terrified. You know, he's bitten off he's bitten off some bark that he can't chew, or whatever that line is. And
bit off more than you can chew.
Bit off more than you can chew. There you go. I don't know why we thought bark was there, but
got it.
And
no, now I want to work bark into the.
I like it.
Into the phrasing.
Now I'm hungry.
And
now it's a beef jerky.
It's so funny. There was just this moment where, and Claire, I don't know if you've seen it, but Vader is just kind of like, he's just throwing stuff with the Force at Luke, and then eventually knocks him out this window, and he's holding on for dear life on this catwalk, and he pulls himself up, and I just happened to look up at the time. There's this just perfect expression on Mark Hamill where he's you can almost just tell that Luke is just going, the fuck did I just get myself into?
Yeah.
And it's just like that humbling moment, the stuff that's not being said. Which is why I still think that's the best lightsaber fight in all of Star Wars, is just because of all the stuff that's going on underneath it. It's not the most flashy thing, but there's just so much going on. And And so to kind of come back to what you were saying, and that's the stuff that I really enjoy now, I think, in film more than anything else, is actors who can give you just a little bit of what's going on behind the veil a little bit.
Yeah. Like the unspoken stuff.
Yeah.
Well, like as an actor, that's it's our responsibility, right? You know, I'm talking to my actors right now often about this idea of what's the big dead elephant in the room, you know, which is like, what's the subtext? What's the 800-pound gorilla that's sitting there that may not be in the lines, but we know that this scene is about that thing that we're not saying. It's a very American acting style to work with subtext. You know, the Brits are very much about the language and the words, and it's all there, and then you kind of just interpret it from wherever. But us as Americans, we've always kind of sat in the idea of subtext and things like that. So we like subtext in our stories. I have been drawn to a couple of things lately in terms of what I love about storytelling. Here are the two things I'll say. I love a fictional event seen from the perspective of something that I haven't seen it from before. So it's twisted. I guess maybe not even a fictional event. I mean, a historical event. Sometimes it can be as simple as the idea of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead, where you're seeing the story of Hamlet through the eyes of two of the lesser known characters. But I do also like a historical event that you're getting somebody else's perspective on. So if it's the Battle of Gettysburg, and this hasn't existed, so anybody want to write it, they can. But from the town the day before the Confederates and the Union meet at Cemetery Ridge, like that type of stuff. I want to see it from a skewed point of view. I like that. People who are experiencing
like a more on the ground type of
or
POV.
even I don't want to bring in Jack and Rose, but like even somebody who's on the Titanic.
Right.
It's a great story. It's a great story, Matt.
Yeah. No,
don't be embarrassed.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for helping me through that. I appreciate that. It is a great story. There's no doubt about it. It gets melodramatic and sappy at times. And I don't think it needs to be that way. I think the core of it's compelling, but I like that type of stuff. What's the ship that came in and rescued the people?
I almost just said the Cleopatra.
It's not the Persa. No,
I think you're onto it there.
It begins with a P.
No,
my dad used to have a book called Lost Liners, and it would sit on our coffee. I feel like I should know this, and I don't.
It was the Californian. No,
the Californian. Yeah, it was the Californian.
That's it. No, that's it.
The White Star ship line named the Californian. No, but like what would it be like to see a story of somebody on that ship, and then the ship has to then pick up the people who survived the Titanic? I like that type of stuff. So I want to see these things that we have knowledge of unfold. I guess there's a little dramatic irony is what I'm looking for. Like, we know Pearl Harbor is going to get bombed, and so I want to see a better movie than Pearl Harbor.
Right.
But we know these things are coming. We know that that Pompeii's going to burn, I guess you could say.
You know, I have to admit that sometimes I watch, like when I watch movies like that I've also seen before, I watch them because I'm like, maybe it'll just be different this time.
Yeah.
I know. Like maybe it'll miss the iceberg. Like maybe it won't, maybe it'll just be a different story this time. It's
great storytelling when they can do that.
I was just about to say that. If you can make me every single time be like, or just say like, come on, no, just go left. Please, just go left. Like, you full well know what's going to happen. Yeah,
Is that good storytelling?
I would absolutely.
I thought that was just
if you're
me
still
being
that
delusional.
emotionally attached to it, I would absolutely. I mean, you probably got to ask yourself why you're so emotionally attached, but I think that's also part of the good
Go sit
storytelling.
over there.
too.
Yeah, no, I don't think you need to go to therapy for it. But
That's a fair point.
I will watch Apollo 13 almost every time and be like, are they going to make it? Are they going to make it? I hope they make it, because it just unfolds in such a beautiful, perfect way. I think that's very. I do. I think that's great storytelling.
Yeah. I also really love a story that surprises me. I don't love being in like sitting down and watching a movie, let's say, with somebody who kind of predicts the ending and they're like, oh, this is going to happen. Or maybe I'll see a movie and I'll think it's really good and I'll sit someone down to watch it and then they can like guess what's going to happen. And I'm like, can you just like enjoy the journey, please?
Well,
like
I think there's. I don't mean to cut you off, but I think there's two faults there, right? The impatient watcher, but also the studio going, I only need something that makes money, something that people are familiar with, something that's guaranteed. It's why, in retrospect, and I'm not really mad at him. Let's just do a whole Star Wars episode, why don't we? But I'm not really mad at him. But The Force Awakens is such an echo of A New Hope.
Right.
Because they wanted it to feel safe, and I didn't need it to be safe, you know?
Right.
I didn't need it to be safe. I thought there was enough in there that they could have went right and left and really surprised me, but they didn't. And I don't have a lot of criticism for it. But it is also why I love The Last Jedi.
Right.
Because it is so different.
Oh, man.
It's so out there. It's and it ruins people's childhood, so I enjoy that part.
My buddy Bobby, shout out to Bobby, told me that if I come on this podcast, I specifically have to talk about Episode 8.
I mean,
but
like the idea of in space, a bomber doesn't really work, like a bombing ship.
there's tons of flaws in the
But
film.
I love the tension that created.
Well, I like the through line,
and
of
it was
that film.
new.
Yeah, I like the through line of that film, which is like throw out the past, and not in a way that dishonors it, but just in a sense of, hey, let's tear down our idols a little bit. Let's have some fun. Anyone can use the Force, and then even what they were doing with the whole like flyboy aspect of Poe, I don't think it was executed very well, but I enjoy the idea of questioning archetypes that have been around for a long time. I mean, even if we find out that they're there for a reason, it's fun to poke holes at them, I think. And,
Yeah.
And I think Last Jedi did that in a way that I think was honoring the vision of Star Wars.
And a very loud vocal amount of people felt like it wasn't.
Exactly. And I often...
Fuck 'em.
But I walked out of that movie disappointed. And then I kind of had to ask myself why I was disappointed. And over time, I've realized that it was questioning all the things that I really loved about Star Wars. But
let Rian Johnson have all three.
Yeah, I'm with you.
You can't. My biggest problem with the sequel trilogy is they didn't have a plan. I've said this before many times, but they didn't have a plan. You are the trilogy people. No offense. Tolkien wrote one book and the publisher split it up, so it's not really a trilogy. It's not.
Boom.
not everybody can be as perfect as the Lord of the Rings trilogy people.
Again, Return of the King has
Took
like
you 3
8
movies to
endings.
destroy a ring.
There was nothing wrong with that movie.
Piece of jewelry.
But that they didn't have a plan. They were the trilogy people, and they should have had a plan, and they didn't have a plan, and that was the biggest disappointment to me because they had so much that they could have worked with.
But
yeah,
did
they didn't use Jason and Jana and the twins and all the stuff that come out of the legacy novels, which is great stuff, which they could have thrown on its head in some way, but they made their own character. They didn't have a plan.
But what if they did have a plan, Matt?
Yes.
And it just wasn't like that good. Because this is what I think when it comes to, like, again, film adaptations. Like, somebody had a lot of pride in that work. Somebody worked really hard. Lots of people worked so hard. They had an idea. They had a vision. They did have a plan. But it didn't work. And it didn't work according to a lot of people. But it worked for them. That's what freaks me out.
I don't know that it did.
But how do you do something like that and not have a plan? Obviously, they had a plan.
Actually, they've admitted. Well, I guess
How can
I'm
they
nearly
fucking do
positive.
that?
I'm nearly positive. J.J. Abrams was said on camera that they didn't have a storyboard.
How can they just like jeopardize that much money?
I don't. Well, because they have that much money, because they're the Disney Corporation, and they can play with that. I think they looked at it more like a writing assignment or something. Like they went to it like here's a little
nice.
writing exercise we're gonna do. Like I'm gonna write the first part, and then I'm gonna hand you the paper, and you write the second part, and then you're gonna hand somebody else the paper, and they're gonna write the third part. And I just don't think. I think if you're making individual Star Wars movies over a long time, fine, that would be very cool. But like if you're doing a trilogy, you're looking to do the sequel trilogy, have a plan, have an arc, go in a certain way. I don't think there's value in finding your way through it, because your success is then by accident and not by design.
Sure.
And I think your success when it's like this should be by design.
Yeah, I think that's fair. My issue with the sequel trilogy is actually really just episode 9. Episode 7 and 8, I can just say, okay, we had a story. It was pretty cohesive for the most part. There was plot holes. But then in episode 9, because of the backlash, they basically just retconned all of it. And I thought that was just a really poor decision just from a movie-making standpoint. Cause,
I agree. I also think, though, the death of Carrie Fisher hurt them a lot.
Sure.
I think they wanted the first one to be Han, the second one to be Luke, and the third one to be Leia. And that hurt everything. But yeah, no, I mean it's a movie I don't like to really watch.
Nick, what else do you have written in your notebook?
You don't want to talk about Star Wars anymore, Claire.
Nick has a lot of.
Well,
he prepared a lot. Look at all those pages of writing.
Hey, we got time.
Too.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, a lot of it is Star Wars because I did watch
that's
the end. I did watch the end of Empire
You
a
guys
lot.
should.
And we could do a
Nick's
Star
definitely
Wars.
coming back.
Yeah, and we'll bring Grady in because Grady loves the Star Wars.
But I would like to talk more of the themes that I was thinking. But
sure, no. The other thing that I want to say is the thing that attracts me about story lately, other than a different perspective on familiar events, is I love a science fiction that feels real. I'm a huge fan of The Martian because it's just enough science fiction to go, we can't do this, we haven't done this, but everything is based in a real science. Andy Weir is one of my favorite authors. His newest book, which they just finished filming and hopefully will come out in the next couple of years, is a story called Project Hail Mary. And it is exactly that. It's just enough real science. Everything is grounded in real science, but it is science fiction. And so those are the things that are attracting me the most these days.
I like that.
Themes.
Yeah. No, totally. I mean, as far as like what else I had written down, I really enjoy stories that that the character has to grow up in the process. And so actually the one that I had written down, because I've only read the first book, but the one that I wrote down was Frodo. Right, Frodo. Oh, by the way,
Never heard of it.
Never heard of him. My friend Chris would agree with you. He doesn't like hobbits. He thinks that Lord of the Rings would be better without them.
He's probably more of a hobbit than he realizes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hairy feet.
Sorry, Chris.
Yeah, he's canceled. He doesn't understand anything.
Well, he had he had his time, and so now.
Yeah,
oh
he's
God,
gone now.
now I feel bad.
No more
I brought
Chris.
it up as a joke, but
I hope that's not his real name.
oh no, he'll listen. I told him I was going to do it. So so that said, but the path that Frodo goes on in Fellowship, from I mean, he's really just terrified the whole time, and at the very end, there's that moment where he has to make the decision to either go with the rest of the Fellowship or split off and go directly to Mordor, and you kind of get the POV through Sam in the book, where Sam says something along the lines of he's already made his decision, he's just terrified to do it. And And I think just as someone who has been undergoing a lot of change and had to grow up a lot, especially in the last year, stories like that have really been sticking out to me. You know, I have to...
Because you identify with
I identify
that.
with
Yeah.
it. You know, to Game of Thrones it for a second, like kill the boy, Jon Snow. You have to grow up, and to me that journey of Frodo, that's what that's all about. Is he has to make sacrifices because he doesn't want to leave the Shire. Why would you want to leave the Shire? It's incredible.
I don't know.
They're not
breakfasts?
They're not meant to.
Right, 2 breakfasts.
Yeah.
Breakfasts.
Hobbits average
Breakfast eye.
Yeah.
Hobbits
No, you're
average
right.
6 meals a day.
Right.
They're not built for adventure.
Taught not to overthink.
Which is why he was perfect for the job that he was given,
Right,
because
the burden.
he's the antithesis to the villain, which is the completely unexpected hero.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing what a hobbit can do.
And then also the other theme of the Fellowship, of just the idea that it does take a village, you know, and everyone has a part to play, and
Yeah, even when they're not together, it does.
Right.
Everybody is coming together.
you know,
too.
and what does Gandalf says to Frodo is, as long as this is your burden to bear, I'll bear it with you.
And even when I was watching the movies when I was really young, I think I watched the first movie before I really even knew about this world, right? Like, it was a really interesting evening in my house, and we were watching it on a really small TV, and
Don't recommend that. I do not recommend that.
it was like 2001 or 2002 or something, probably even 2000. Yeah.
The first one, yeah. Because it came out around the same time as The Phantom Menace, and I had my own little, like, heartbreak, really, because it was like I wanted Star Wars to be so much, not so much better, but I wanted it to be so much better. I did.
Yeah.
And it was very,
I get that.
It was very flat. And then you look at the way that Peter Jackson filmed The Lord of the Rings, and it had texture and depth, and I was like, this is how you use CGI. This is the right way to use it, as opposed to just, blue backgrounds and stuff like that. And also, if we're going for more parallels, as the movies unfolded, Frodo's seduction by the ring felt more grounded, felt more dangerous than Anakin's seduction to the dark side. And I wanted Frodo's journey to be Anakin's, and it didn't really feel like it was. And then Dave Filoni came around and he saved the world by giving us the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's a story for another. That's another podcast.
But on that theme,
I could see you fading.
I was really, I had a high for a minute because we were talking about.
No, let's get into it.
All I was
going
gonna
to talk about
say was,
You love Star Wars. That's what you're.
I do like Star Wars, but I just haven't done the deep dive that you guys have.
No, you're
because
you're
I
in the
keep-
precipice of your Ahsoka
Well,
journey.
because I also have done the deep dive into Tolkien, and I keep diving deeper into it.
Yeah.
It just feels like very familiar
Well,
territory.
Can I actually point out? So Anakin in Star Wars, he at least the way I see it today, falls victim to the dark side because he's actually trying to save the one thing that he really loves, which is his wife. And that kind of reminds me of when Gandalf in the very beginning says, like, I would use the ring for good, but inevitably it's going to lead me to the seduction of power, which is seemingly what happens to Anakin. But go for it. Cook on Lord of the Rings. I'm ready.
I mean, this was like 5 minutes ago, but when I was watching
I
this
thought you had.
story,
Wait.
What?
Did you use your superpowers of time travel to murder us for talking about Star Wars? And then we've just revisited now. We've come back.
And 5 minutes ago.
Oh my God!
I think,
Guys, I'm a
Nick,
little
we got
flushed
murdered.
now.
That's cool.
I think we got murdered.
Let's
Maybe
do
even
it.
a couple times today.
That's so funny and so true. Yeah, no. One of the remarkable things about the experience of watching the Fellowship of the Ring for the first time was at the end of the movie when they split up, and I was like 13, 12 or something, and I was so heartbroken by the fact that, oh my God, Frodo and Sam are going alone. Gandalf is dead, and
Oh yeah.
and Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli, like MVPs, are all like teaming together, and then like the other two hobbits were just kidnapped. Like, what the fuck is happening? And I'm like, the Fellowship is broken.
Right.
Like, what was the point of this? I was so, because I'm there for the journey. Like, I am, and this is what I get so wrapped up in stories. And that's why I don't like when I'm, sometimes like the criticism of like the people online, or, sometimes the conversations I have with people after I watch something, because they kind of pull things apart. Like, I'm there for the story, and I'm there to try and be in those moments with the characters. So I'm watching this and I'm like, what the fuck is going to happen next? However, throughout the rest of the story, there are all of these themes and these hints about how the Fellowship just remained, which is why I actually just love the word fellowship, because I think it's such an impenetrable concept.
Whether they're together or not.
Yeah. Like, you can still be a fellowship without physically being together.
Right, because they all have this. They all have the same task.
They all have a common purpose.
Isn't that what also, on some level, kind of happens to a lot of humans in where...
God, I was hoping you were going to bring back the Star Wars just to see Claire's face.
So anyway, Anakin Skywalker. Isn't that on some level what happens to all of us, where we're growing up and we have the community, and at a certain point we all have to make choices to do the things that are calling us, and so we break off from our tight little circle, but those people still stay with us, and I have a friend group today of all of us who have kind of gone different directions at different times, but we all come. I mean, the Fellowship didn't have a group chat. We have a group chat. Mm-hmm.
I've read group chats by the Fellowship. People have made those, and I've been very entertained by them.
Though I'm not sure why Gandalf couldn't just teleport places. I still don't really understand how his magic works. Maybe Claire can understand or can teach me that more. But
I don't think I even understand how Gandalf's magic works. He doesn't really talk about it.
But
stingy.
Yeah,
He's
stingy
wizard.
old man. And I don't know. That's been my experience. And then you come back together and in different ways, and with new experience and with more wisdom in a lot of ways,
Mm-hmm.
And I think all of the characters grow throughout the. I've only seen the movies other than the first book, but throughout that process, and have their own understanding of the world and what they just witnessed by the end of it.
I mean, I think realistically that's the hope, right? In life, we hope we are emulating the Fellowship, where we can separate, grow, come back, and learn from each other. I don't know that that's always the case. Maybe my cynical nature, maybe my own experience is desirous of that, but I haven't experienced that. But I think it gets to a greater understanding, which we're trying to get at, which is, no matter what the dressings of our stories are, we're always looking for something to relate to. We're looking for something that we can connect to in our own lives, and those are the things that kind of draw us to stories, or make us like certain stories as opposed to other stories. We don't want our life to be predictable. We want great surprises.
Right.
So movies that feel predictable, books that feel predictable, things that form a formula are things that don't excite us, because we feel like we've seen that before. But stories that are adventurous, that have twists and turns, that challenge us in certain ways. I mean, we hope that that's the best of who we are when we're challenged in situations and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, I think whether I know it or not, those are the things I'm drawn to.
How do you guys feel about when stories, I guess I like, called me sort of cheesy. I like a story that kind of ends well. Like, I mean, rom-coms really piss me off, but like, there was a lot of loss along the way in Lord of the Rings. There was a lot of loss in Game of Thrones, a little bit too much, but I feel like Game of Thrones was some type of like show that really like broke the mold for happy endings. And we watched a couple of those in Game of Thrones, and actually one of the reasons I kept watching Game of Thrones was because I just thought someone was going to come back.
Well, when I used to read the books with my ex and my ex-sister-in-law, we used to call George R.R. Martin, the author of the books, the Hope Slayer. So Jamie Lannister's the Kingslayer, but we thought that George R.R. Martin was the Hope Slayer.
Yeah.
So when they reached the point in the show where the book material had ended, we're like, oh, this is going to change.
Right.
They're going to give us hope because no one is as mean as George R.R. Martin. No one kills more people than Shakespeare did, but most people don't kill as much as George R.R. Martin. I mean, the first episode of the show ends with pushing a little kid out of a window.
Right.
It is unseen.
Didn't bother me as much as
to take your mate to cast Boromir, Sean Bean, as your main character. Spoilers coming, and then by what did they have 8 episodes? By I don't know 6 or 7 to chop his head off. I mean, the show. People watch the show because they like Boromir,
right?
In a fantasy show, Sean Bean in a fantasy show. That's why we watched it. It was unprecedented. Mm-hmm. Outside of Scream, maybe, where they killed Drew Barrymore off at the beginning, but like they were playing with the structure of the tropes of what a horror movie could be. But you don't kill your main character off, and everything happens after Eddard Stark's death. Like the King's Road becomes totally and completely untravelable. What would the word be? Untravelable.
You can't travel it.
Yes, that's what.
Untravelable.
Untraversable.
I don't know.
Whatever, either thing that you guys said is better than my mumbling through whatever I tried to say. But he did. He broke the mold. And look, he can be a long-winded writer, and he could make you say and read 8 million names, and it's hard to kind of follow who everything was. But like to fucking kill off Robb Stark, and Catelyn Stark at a wedding
in like a reverse Odysseus too.
Yeah, I mean, like he is the Hope Slayer. There was just no. You kept reading it and reading it, going, anybody at any point.
And we don't really know what his.
I didn't think Tyrion would ever get it.
And we didn't.
Oh, I did. I thought everyone had an opportunity to go, including again spoilers. Even after Jon came back, there was still a part of me that thought he would inevitably, die, and
which was never even explained why he came back. Not really.
The Red Lady.
But she was like, no, that wasn't me.
Oh, it was the power.
She's like, no, I don't have
the power of the.
I actually find that to be a fun part of Martin's universe, that the gods are not really explained, and that it's
the only gods that we've really seen work is the red god. And
and then I guess you could argue the god of death, but
smoke one. Smoky God?
Well, that would still be the Lord
demon?
of Light. That would still have been the Lord of Light.
Well, we don't really even know how it was supposed to end, according to Martin.
Oh, right. So, but I think that was kind of a cool part, which was to say, are the things that these people are worshiping, are they even helpful on some level? And I think the books, because I've read them, it's been a while, but I think the books do a better job at kind of leaning into the mystery of the world a little bit more than the show did.
Yeah, well, there was that big streak of red across the sky, and in the second book, we don't know the purpose of that.
Right.
Lady Stoneheart comes back.
Right.
And what's her purpose? And in the books,
and almost
Jaime and Brianna have a much different fate early on. We don't know.
And for that matter, all the Starks are basically wargs on some level. Or at the very least, they're all dreaming about the animals. Yeah. And
they're all younger.
It's a good thing they aged them up for the show.
Yeah, you have to.
Well, they did age.
But like John and Rob are like 15 and 16.
Yeah, I mean Arya.
Well, the actors aged.
Arya in the beginning of the book is like 7.
So cool.
Did
the Battle of Winterfell happen in the books the way it didn't? Okay.
Jon Snow is dead in the books.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jon Snow is dead. Danny's on the prairie.
Yeah. On the prairie.
Yeah.
They only did 5. Martin has not finished 6 and 7.
Dance of the Dragons and the Feast of Crows.
Yep.
Take place over the same period of time.
Yep.
I'm just gonna say this and have it recorded is that I don't think I'm gonna continue to watch House of Dragon.
Why not?
That's a bummer. I've been enjoying House of Dragon.
I also know what happens, and it gets.
I can't handle the deaths of the dragons.
I haven't read it, but I know generally how it ends.
I don't. I think I know what's going to happen. I think I did see some spoilers. No, I'm not saying it here.
Oh, okay.
But I can't. I really cannot handle watching the dragons die.
Oh,
and I know that's what's going to happen. I can't do it.
I think it's intentionally brutal because I think one of the through lines in that show is the idea of taming something like a dragon and how it's because I forget his name, the king's name, Viserys in the beginning. He kind of views the taming of the dragons as House Targaryen's original sin.
Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting plot device.
It's too heartbreaking. I just don't like watching animals die.
Well, the dramatic irony that we know is that dragons don't exist when Game of Thrones, the present Game of Thrones
it's also CGI and it's not even real, and I can't handle it. I just can't. I can't
Wait,
do
what?
it. When I'm watching the shows.
Wait, they didn't cast real dragons?
Oh. I don't think so.
Maybe I'm not going to watch now.
Yeah, don't watch it with me.
No, let's get together and not watch it. No, I know what happens. We are on the precipice of crazy shit.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm surprised they didn't get into crazy shit in season 2, but I also understand why they didn't get into crazy shit so that season 3 could
absolutely cook.
Yeah, and it will. It's just it's unfortunately going to.
Well, and unfortunately, when it comes to me and stories, I can only go to a certain point.
Well, yeah, you don't like cruelty to animals, or you don't even like an animal blooper reel.
Yeah. On the record, Claire doesn't mind a child getting pushed out of a window.
Definitely not.
But has an issue with CGI dragons.
She's already murdered us 3 times.
That's true. 4 now. 4.
Yeah. There's no doubt about that. So look, when we talk about story, it's fun to just focus on the positive. I think there's way too much. Like, I think you should know why you don't like something, and you are not. Everybody's entitled to their opinion and not liking stuff, but like, I don't think there's a need to continue to go over. Why I don't like this and this is shit, because I think you said it, Claire. Like, everybody's trying to make a great. No one wants to make a bad movie. Nobody wants to write a bad book. Nobody wants to do a bad play. Well, maybe some local theaters want to do bad plays, but that's because they don't. That's because they don't read them. But like, for the most part, people are trying their best. So I'm glad that we took 3 stories really: Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, and Game of Thrones, and kind of just talked about what aspects of those shows why we like them.
We didn't even talk about Harry Potter, which we don't have to.
No, but it's
not complex enough.
Well,
you don't think so? The thing that I liked about Harry's journey throughout it as he got older was I felt like he was unapologetic. I felt like he was not ever trying to be the perfect hero.
Yeah.
Even though he's in the hero archetype, he made huge mistakes.
Because he was like 12.
Yeah, but like, I'm thinking about year 5 when you and I come on stage as Wayne and Harry and are like, friends are stupid.
Yeah.
And like, he was really a dick.
Yeah.
He was a dick almost through a whole movie.
Yeah.
Granted, he saw Cedric's death. Spoilers.
But in the book, which
man.
was my favorite book, book 5 was my favorite book. It's the only one I read twice.
Oh.
It was the inside of Harry's mind, and it was so beautifully written. It was such a beautiful and capture of what goes on in someone. And and the movie 5 was just like stupid.
I don't remember. 5 is 5
Order
Phoenix.
Order of Phoenix. Yeah.
That's where
That's when he kissed Cho. That's the Room of Requirement one.
The Room of Requirement. Yes.
When Sirius dies.
Required Joe.
And Sirius
Cho.
dies. I'm not that well versed in Harry Potter. I only watched it for the first time in. I mean, I'd seen bits and pieces of it, but I really only watched it for the first time in 2020.
So you didn't read any of the books?
No, I mean, when I was younger, I think I had Chamber of Secrets, and
were like, people like this. I'm not gonna like this.
Yeah. Oh, dude. I mean, my brother calls me contrary, by nature, just for the fun of it.
You would love them.
I was saying it. Look, my youngest is named after him, and he fights it and fights it and fights it. He loved Puffs. He loved The Cursed Child, but he just fights against the Harry Potter books. And I'm like, it's so sad because, this totally backfired on your mom and me, because you would love these stories. Like, they're really, like, even though she's become an issue. Yeah, thank you. I was going to say sociopath, but that's probably slander. An issue. The sensitivity in which these characters existed in the book is so complex. It just doesn't match with the choices that she's making as a human being now. Almost like it had to be somebody else to write it.
Right.
And there's no proof of that, but like there really is. Dumbledore is a complex character. Snape is a complex character. It's really, really well written. And if you like audiobooks, the performance by Jim Dale reading the Harry Potter books is Oscar worthy.
Okay.
It's next level. If you like audiobooks, I highly recommend. Not the Stephen Fry, although they're good. Jim Dale reading these books, the American version.
Maybe she didn't write them.
Maybe
we could start
allegedly.
That. Maybe we could start
Wanna
that.
Start that?
Yeah,
that
Start that rumor.
Yeah. Make everybody feel better. Like a Christopher Marlowe situation.
Wait, what did Marlowe write?
Well,
you think Marlowe was Shakespeare?
In college, I was challenged to write a whole research paper on why Christopher Marlowe wrote all of Shakespeare's plays.
There's no evidence for that.
Well, I have a whole research paper on it.
You could say that
I'll find it.
The what is it? The Earl of Oxford. You could make a case for him actually being the author of Shakespeare's plays, and they made a movie about it too. And there's like some anecdotal evidence and other bullshit like that. But Marlowe, no.
Well, the whole point of the paper...
Please bring your paper to the podcast.
The teacher was, like, giving us this challenge, and I was, like, it had, like, steam coming out of my ears the whole time. I'm like, are you absolutely kidding me? I have to write this? And the whole point was write something that you don't believe in. Make a statement on something. Just
you still need evidence.
And somehow I got it.
Made it up?
Probably.
Yeah.
You can do anything to Wikipedia these
Nick,
days.
You did it.
Are we at an hour?
You made an hour.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do we have time for a quick question? Though I don't know if it's going to be quick.
Sure.
So a buddy of mine, another person named Chris, shout out to the other Chris, wanted me to ask you guys that which circle of Dante's hell would you like to be part of, and why?
What are they?
Like if you had to lay rest somewhere, I think is how he put it.
Here's what I have to answer at this moment, because I'm working on the last days of Judas Iscariot, and part of our ad campaign is we're all hopefully adding the Subway 9, the red 9, to our advertising scheme for like Facebook and stuff.
That's why you're.
So it's the ninth circle of hell. Is where we think Judas is.
Matt updated his Instagram profile picture. That's why.
And it's got just the 9. So I'm going to say the 9th.
What is so I'm actually not familiar. Cold. Is it cold?
Yeah, you got to tell me what they're.
I don't know what they are.
I want the one where I can eat all the time.
I should have prepped for this better. The one where you can eat all the time.
Yeah, isn't that one? Isn't there an eating gluttony?
Yeah, that's 6.
Okay, wait.
Wait, I'm getting them. Don't you worry.
Ninth circles. Oops, that's not what it is.
First circle is limbo. Second is oh man, I'd like to spend some time in lust. Claire's getting off of the 3rd floor of gluttony. Gluttons suffer in a fool slush produced by ceaseless rain, representing their overindulgence in food and drink. What?
That doesn't sound fun.
Suffer in a foul. Well, it's hell. It's the 9 circles of hell.
All right.
Okay, wait. I decided I wanted lust, and then now I should read what it actually is.
Yeah.
Those are overcome by lust. Okay. So it's because you're overcome by lust. Are blown about by violent winds, symbolizing their lack of control over their desires. I think
you live there, Matt. I think you actually. It's kind of windy where you are.
Yeah, that's true.
I wouldn't mind being a kite.
so
I'm gonna make a kite.
Yeah.
That's you. Okay.
5th.
What's number 4?
4 is greed. The greedy and the wasteful are forced to push heavy weights against each other, symbolizing their futile struggles for wealth.
Oof,
that's not me, but
that's Sisyphus, isn't it? I mean, pretty much.
Pretty much, except imagine if you were Sisyphus and somebody was rolling a
rolling it
boulder
against you
while you were trying to roll a boulder up.
God.
Wrath. The fifth circle. The angry fight each other on the surface of the Styx, while the sullen lie submerged below, representing the inability to express or control their anger.
None of these sound good.
Oh, yeah, no, that sounds bad.
It's weird, right? Sixth circle, heresy. Heretics are trapped in flaming tombs, reflecting their beliefs against the doctrine of their faith.
Oh, it's kind of like the Undertaker.
That sounds like
in
fun.
Wrestling. That's not terrible.
Oh, it's but flames.
Sounds also
burning.
sounds a little bit like today, like living.
Seventh circle is violence, divided into 3 rings. This circle punishes those who commit violence against others, themselves, or God, with various tortures reflecting their actions. All right. Eighth circle is fraud. This circle, known as mélabellage, contains 10 ditches for different types of fraud, each with its own punishment tailored to the crime. Ooh, I said 9, but it's treachery, which, I mean, works for Judas. The lowest circle is reserved for traitors.
Wow.
Who are frozen in a lake of ice, reflecting their ultimate betrayal and lack of warmth or humanity. Well, I don't want to be trapped in ice. I just want the air conditioning on.
Right.
You know, I want to sit around going like, I could use a blanket.
Yeah.
You know?
So none of these sound particularly... What is limbo? We kind of brushed over it. What was...
Okay. Inhabitants are virtuous pagans and unbaptized infants who, while not punished, live in a state of longing.
It's fucking daycare?
Ooh.
No, but it's daycare.
Longing for God.
Waiting for the whoever runs the daycare lady. What do you call it? The teacher? No.
The daycare lady is
the
fine.
daycare lady, waiting for the daycare lady to come.
I feel like this is
She's sitting you at those little tables and the little chairs with lunch, right? And you have a drink, but you don't have a straw to drink your drink. And you just have to wait. You're waiting for your straw.
I don't like any of these options. What I kind of
fucking going with lust.
The anger.
Those are overcome by lust. Are blown about by violent winds.
Let me see this.
Kite me up.
I got it. Okay. Third, gluttons suffer in a foul slush, prosperous, ceaseless rain. Represent.
Which one was lust? That was 4 or 5.
That was the 4th.
Wrath. The angry fight each other on the surface, or the sullen lie submerge. I mean, I like the fighting one. I want to fight people. The anger, wrath. I'll be in the wrath one. Yeah, I'll be in the wrath one, please. I'll take wrath.
I'll take wrath.
I don't want to be in gluttony anymore. It doesn't sound like you get to eat at all.
No, it doesn't.
It sounds like you're just waiting around in your own slush.
All right, so Claire is the 5th circle of hell. I have decided to go with the 2nd circle of hell.
What about you, Nick?
Nick, yeah.
So, man.
Heresy? You want heresy?
What is heresy again?
Trapped in flaming tombs, reflecting their beliefs against the doctrines of the faith.
Yeah, let's go with heresy. I mean, I most certainly.
This would be such a whole separate podcast.
This really would be.
Yeah.
Maybe you guys got the next one, but
week.
We could just keep going and split it up.
Yeah, maybe I'll decline. Maybe I'll decline the answer. Limbo sounds interesting. I mean, the longing for God and others. You know,
inhabitants so you're living with virtuous pagans and unbaptized infants.
Yeah, that sounds terrible. You don't want to be around babies in hell.
I love the fact that it's like this is such a Christian thing, you know, that you didn't baptize your baby. I'm sorry. Yeah. First circle of hell.
I don't know. I definitely don't have an answer. But for some reason, the heresy reminded me of the Undertaker coming out of a flaming casket. And I
want to see a good
we'll go with
circle of hell movie.
You know.
The circle of hell, it lives below me. All right. Well, thank you for joining us, Nick. That was a fun discussion.
Thank you guys for having me.
I think we got to a lot. Obviously, Claire's going to feel a little like we didn't do enough for Lord of the Rings.
It's okay.
But Lord of the Rings can stand up by itself. Star Wars needs a little help
right now. Yeah,
it's fine. Yeah, you guys. Right, I mean, I do struggle to follow Star Wars just because there's so much, and I got lost.
I think it's what you're introduced to as a child too. I think
I was introduced to it as a child, and I loved it. It was a good learning experience. My dad took us to the theater. It was really special.
For
well, there goes that theory.
But I wasn't a fan of the next ones. Anyway, we could stop.
It's fine.
We could stop.
We have a lot of I have a lot of Ahsoka work to do with Claire.
Yeah. I mean, if you get in on Ahsoka, you're.
Well, I already have the paraphernalia.
That's what we started with, the paraphernalia.
Oh, very nice. Yeah.
I got her
Ahsoka.
in I'm no Jedi bag, so.
Ahsoka humanized Anakin a lot. It was a smart move to bring her into the story.
And she's also like one of the she's connected to the Skywalkers, obviously, but yeah, she's just one of the most complex and interesting characters, and doesn't have a straightforward path.
No, not at all.
Which I think we agreed that those are things that we like, things that are unpredictable, things that kind of break the mold and the structure of what we know as storytelling. And I often say to my students too, and this is probably what we can leave with, is like, you have to understand structure in order to break structure. And sometimes people break structure without understanding it, and then that's where we get confused and lost. But good storytelling comes from understanding how storytelling has worked throughout time, you know? Stephen King always said, like, the best way to be a writer is to read books. So on that note, thanks for joining us, and we'll speak to you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
So that was our episode. Thank you, Nick, for joining us. That was a fun talk about stories and why we like them. We touched on Star Wars. We touched on Lord of the Rings. I know we did an episode on storytelling earlier, but we may revisit topics, and I think this one was a little bit more specific. So I hope that you enjoyed it. It was a good conversation. No sandwich emergencies, so that's really important. Go to crystaltheater.org if you are interested in seeing The Last Days of Judas Iscariot by Stephen Adly Gurgis, a wonderful play about self-forgiveness. No spoilers. I highly recommend it. It'll make you think. It'll make you laugh. It'll make you emotional. So please come check out The Last Days of Judas Iscariot. Go to crystaltheater.org. Yeah, that's where you can get tickets. If you like what you heard, please rate, review, and subscribe. Thank you for listening to The Last Will Podcast. If you want to get in touch with us, you can get us on thelastwillpodcast.com, The Last Will Podcast on Instagram, and I think it's Matt Young at thelastwillpodcast.com. Is that an email? Matt Young at The Last Will Podcast? I don't know. Something like that. Anyways, it is with giddy excitement I say to you, onward, forward,